So when we were last looking at this code here, we were hitting a little bit of a roadblock
Hmm.
because when we were trying to run our HTTP client, it was basically hanging. And when we started looking at what the TikTok website's actually doing, it's kind of the worst fear becoming a reality where the site was not actually showing all of the HTML content right away. It actually ends up generating that after the site's loaded. So basically, using the HTTP client this way is not going to work. So we spent a little bit of time trying to dig around to look for some options. I was really scratching my head because I didn't want to go back to the API calls. Started looking at a couple more advanced things, but I personally hit a roadblock. But Jamal, you had a really interesting idea. And what was it that you were proposing we do?
Yeah, so basically, in my limited programming experience, bit of web scraping, I suggested we use Selenium. So pull up a Chrome browser, essentially automate the experience of opening a browser and effectively going in and scraping it as if we did it manually.
Right. And I think that in theory, like that approach makes a lot of sense because the whole issue that we're having is that we don't have an opportunity using this current mechanism to be able to have the website like load scripts, generate the content, and see it as you would as a user visiting the site. But with Selenium, that actually would allow us to do that. So I think let's go try implementing this. Jamal, this is going to be maybe a little bit more advanced than I was planning for us today because I think the HTTP client route is kind of like a pretty basic thing.
Hmm.
But when you encounter roadblocks like this, I think your solution is more creative and I think is going to bypass this issue we have. So all this code that you spent, you know, all of your effort writing, I think we're going to backspace everything except the comments at the top. Those are still pretty useful for us. And we're going to start by actually getting what's called a NuGet package. So we're going to try to basically get a library that will let us use Selenium from your project. So this is going to be a little bit new for you, but the
Okay.
same concept if you're like using Python or something and you want to use someone's library, same idea. But it's called a NuGet package in C sharp. So you're going to right click on your project in the on the right side of your screen
Okay. Right up here.
and yep, on the project though. And then so the one right below that,
What is this one? This is the
that's
solution.
called the solution, which can contain multiple projects.
Got you.
So that one there. And then most or halfway down, there's something that says manage NuGet packages. You're going to want to click that.
Nougat packages. So not like the yogurt dessert
That's
nougat.
right. Yeah. It's not quite the same. Almost as tasty when you see what we can get. Then you're going to want to go to browse. It starts on the installed tab, but go to the browse tab and you're going to want to look for selenium.webdriver.
Okay. Boop.
Cool. And I don't know why it does this. It does it on my computer too. The top result is always scrolled at a view. So just click somewhere like
Huh.
on any one of those items or just scroll up to the top. There you go.
Yeah.
You want that one with almost 70 million downloads.
Okay.
That's the
Great.
one.
And not the
So
Chrome driver in this instance.
we're gonna I'm gonna get you to install that manually.
Okay.
To be totally honest, I have not used the package right below that has the Chrome driver, but we do have to download that separately. So go ahead
Okay.
and press the install button there,
Okay.
and it's just gonna download that for you. You can see in the console there. It's installing. You're gonna want to press OK to that,
Okay.
and it's done. So you can go ahead and
Magic.
close that little window that's there, and
Okay.
basically just go back to your program.cs file.
Perfect.
Awesome stuff. So now what we want to do is you're going to want to be able to make a Selenium WebDriver, and we do that by basically if you this is where like it might be a little bit more confusing because we have to access a package that you just downloaded. You're going to have to refer to the right namespace for this. So it's actually the namespace is where their code is located. So it's just organized, kind of like a folder structure is the best way to think about it.
Okay.
So if you type using, this is like going to allow you to view information from other packages or sources. So using space, and their namespace starts with open QA. So if you start typing open QA, you'll see it
So,
pop up there.
sorry to interrupt you. I see
Yeah.
using is faded. Is this an instance where I should be capitalizing it?
No, that's right. But you're going to
Okay,
want to basically hit dot now so that it'll complete with the right capitalization of OpenAI.
nice.
Then Selenium.
Okay, and so am I pressing tab? Yes, perfect.
Yep. And then one more you're going to do is dot Chrome.
Okay,
This is going to be automation for Chrome. There you go.
great.
And then a semicolon. So what you should be able to do now is on a new line, you're going to want to type I WebDriver. So capital I. Yeah, there you go. The first one that you have at the top there. So this is actually what's called an interface. So
So,
it's just a small detail. It doesn't really matter, but
okay,
go
this
ahead.
is an interface. What happened here when I accepted this iWebDriver? All of a sudden, we have two lines now.
Yeah, it's probably that iWebDriver is in the other namespace, so just openqa.selenium.
Okay,
But it's not a big deal. So just like when we declared other variables, I mentioned that iWebDriver is an interface, but it's still on this line. It's the type of the variable that you're making. So you're going to want to say, give it a name like WebDriver, like it's suggesting. So you can press tab on that part or type it, and then equals. But we're going to want to make a new instance of a WebDriver, not setting it to null. So their suggestion there is actually not right. You're going to want to type new Chrome driver. So
N-
NEW space Chrome driver.
there it is.
Boom.
So much
Cool.
autofill magic.
It's really powerful, and I don't know all the behind the scenes, but I honestly in the past year or so, I feel like the autocomplete has become so much more intelligent. It's really cool, and actually it picks up on some of the patterns that you're typing. So if I'm going through a lot of files and changing stuff, it will actually be like, hey, I see that you just did this same thing like 10 times. Like, let me keep applying it for you. It's really cool.
Love that.
Um, so one more quick note. This is not something I want to dive into a lot of detail, but I want you to go to the beginning of this line and just type using again. And just to make it a little bit more clear for us, go ahead and put a new line between this one you're on and the, yeah, exactly. So
Perfect.
just to briefly explain it, when we make a new Chrome WebDriver, it's going to start up some other processes. It's going to actually have Chrome running.
Okay.
And by putting, it's confusing because it's the same word, but they do very different things. So I'm sorry. But on line 7, when you have using, it just says that when we're done using this, it goes out of scope. We're going to release the resources for it. So it's called a disposable object. It doesn't matter, but we just want to say that we're cleaning up resources. Um, it takes some getting used to knowing which things you should dispose of. This is one of them.
Okay.
So
That's a good point, and I think for viewers, hopefully it'll make more sense. Doesn't make that much sense to me right now, but we
yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah, it's one of those like keep it in mind because as you go, eventually it will catch up and you'll understand a little bit better. So
Okay, great.
this is a Selenium WebDriver that we have access to now, but it's not going to do anything quite yet. We still have to configure this a little bit more. But what we want to do is on a new line, say WebDriver, and I think you can just set the URL that you want to go to. So WebDriver.url.
I'm gonna grab this.
Exactly. And because what are you going to have to do with it?
Quotes, maybe a
That's right.
bracket,
Yes. You need quotes. There you
just
go.
quotes,
And a semicolon. Oh, but
and a
you're
semicolon.
it missed the .url part.
Um,
So
when you say,
webdriver.url.
mm, I missed it. I like how you said
Oh,
it.
that's okay. Cool.
All
So
right.
now we have basically a Chrome, like a Selenium WebDriver that should navigate to this URL. We're still going to have to do some configuration, but I want you to try running it just so we can see what happens.
Let's do
Because
it.
I think by default it should blow up, but that's okay.
All right. Blowing up my computer now. F5. And we see red. The debug console. Chrome has started successfully. Here it is. This
Oh,
just
it didn't
started
blow
on
up.
its own. It did not blow up, and then it blew up.
No, that's okay.
Okay, well, it started and then it closed.
Right.
Uh,
Do you know why it closed?
let's see. Chrome driver was started successfully.
Mhm.
Listening. Exited with code 0. I
Yep.
don't know.
So code zero is generally a success code. Usually a numbered code is an error, but like zero is fine, which sounds
Okay.
kind of weird, but that's standard. It exited because it didn't have anything to do. It basically navigated to the web page. You saw it come up in your Chrome browser, but then when it finished, it's like, well, I got the like I navigated there, I'm done. So it finished. So it did actually what we wanted. I thought there was more configuration we had to do, but it was able to find your Chrome install because you have Chrome installed on your computer. So it just worked, which is really cool.
That's
Um,
awesome.
there's a couple little tweaks we can do to the WebDriver itself so that you don't actually see it pop up on your screen like that. So what we can try doing is on the line above the WebDriver, if you want to basically, so you can close that exactly. So between line 6 and 7, if you add a new line,
Okay.
and we're going to make what's called Chrome options. So you can either use var or you can type Chrome options, up to you.
Let's just go with try typing Chrome options. Here we go.
That works, yeah. So Chrome options, and then give it a name. So that's the type, right? You want to give it a name.
So let's just give it. This is tough. You're right. Naming it is challenging. Uh, hmm.
Especially when you're put on the spot in a video, right? But
Yeah, I love this so much. So I'm just gonna make this browser. Super bad name because it's very general. We don't know what it
sure.
does, but we're gonna roll
Okay.
with it for now.
No worries. So then after that, you're going to type equals. There you go. See it finished for you.
Love that.
Cool.
Just
Tab
keep
one
on
more.
going.
Yep.
And
There
the
you go.
semicolon. I'm getting better with the semicolons.
Right. It does it for you. It's great. So
Yeah.
on the next line, you're going to want to set an option on this. So between line 7 and 8, if you do the variable you called browser, you can say browser dot add arguments. And just
Arguments
for
with an S.
that's right. Yep. And then you can type. So once you have that, the string that you want to pass into there is just called headless. So if you think about running a Chrome browser, you could actually, I'm pretty sure on the command line, you could run Chrome and then pass in headless. This is the same idea. So you're going to want to pass it in parentheses. So you need an open parenthesis, then your double quotes, then a close parenthesis. Exactly. You got it.
And we're gonna put headless just like this.
Yep. That's exactly
Okay.
it.
All right. And semicolon.
Cool. Now quickly press F5 to run it again, see what happens, just to make sure we're not breaking stuff. Break anything for me, so far
There we
so
go.
good.
Now the debug console comes up on the screen. It's come up, which I don't think
Oh,
we wanted.
yeah, interesting. So
Okay.
yeah, I didn't expect that. Maybe it actually is argument with a singular
All right.
argument without an S.
Let's
Anyway,
try
if
that.
that doesn't work, not a big deal. This is just something that we would probably want to add when we're finalizing it because we don't want to have this browser keep popping up. Okay, still happens. Let's not worry about it for now, but that's a note that we want to come back and make sure we're not just like blasting out these Chrome browsers every time we run it.
Fair. Okay.
Okay.
Headless to do.
Yeah, so now we can navigate to this page, but cool, we want to be able to get the content from it. So there's a tricky part here, and the tricky part is on the WebDriver for Selenium. Great, nice comment. That's good. On the WebDriver for Selenium, not with an M. My apologies. There's something called I think it's page source. So
Okay.
on your very last line there, like line 13 or 14,
Mm-hmm.
what you could do is type WebDriver.pageSource.
Okay.
There you go, and that should have the HTML in it. So you don't want to assign to it. You actually want to take that and put it into a variable. So you do like string HTML equals WebDriver.pageSource.
You lost me, Nick. So string.
That's a other
So
way
not
around.
strong. Oh,
So you want to go to the beginning of the line, say string
Got you. Okay.
Oh, and you pressed insert, I think, by
You
the
saw
way. So
that. Yeah, very very good observation. Let's zoom
keen
in
eyes.
actually, speaking of which.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Insert is dangerous when you get like you type in really fast and it's on, you just start deleting everything and you're like, oh God, what happened? But yeah, so if you do like string and then give it a name like HTML, for example, I'll try to help on the naming on this one,
Another.
equals.
So, quick question.
Yes,
See, I have no space between this equals. Is that just a, stylistic? Doesn't really matter.
styling thing. Yeah, generally styling would be to have a space, but yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. So no worries. And then at the
Okay.
end of this line, you need a semicolon, not an equal sign. But there you go. So we don't have to run this, but I want to give you a heads up that this actually still won't work as we expect. And I want to
Hmm.
explain this for a brief moment. It mostly can and should work, but one of the tricky things about how Selenium operates and how you access the page source, this will in fact get you HTML, but depending when you ask for it, it will give you different HTML. So if you were to think about a timeline, as soon as you start navigating to the page, if you said, give me the HTML, it'll give you what it currently has. It's literally like your web browser, right? So if you were to wait, 100 milliseconds, 200 milliseconds, do it again, and ask, it would give you different HTML because those scripts have to run and populate and actually build out the HTML that we see. So this is where it gets a little bit tricky for us, and why I mentioned that sort of completing this topic is maybe going to be a little bit more advanced than I kind of planned for, but I can speed it up a little bit. And I'm going to provide you some code on the side that you can drop in. I'll
Okay.
walk us through it. And the only reason I want to do this is because some of the syntax that we have to use, it's not obvious. And it's not really fair for me to be like, hey, Jamal, try typing this. And you're like, dude, this doesn't make sense. This took me like I had already been programming in C sharp for years. And when I started using what's called, get ready for this, an anonymous delegate, right? When I started using anonymous delegates, I was like, this hurts my brain. But once you get used to it, it's like, it's quite obvious. So give me a
So,
sec. I'm gonna send you some code, Jamal, and then you can
okay,
drop this in.
let's do it.
Basically, what we've done is created a function that we can call and reuse, and we need to use the WebDriver. So that gets passed into here. We want to provide it with what text we're looking for. And we actually know what that is based on some of the HTML we looked at earlier. And then we're going to give it a timeout. Maybe something like we'll pass in like 10 seconds, 15 seconds, just so it has some time to load the page. But what this will do is actually wait for that period of time, up to 10 or 15 seconds, whatever we specify. And then when it's done, it might be a little bit confusing, but the thing that it returns on line 33, it's a special basically a special thing that I've created. It's called a record, but
Okay.
it has the location at which it found the text, and it actually gives us back the page source at that point in time. The reason why that's important is because if we go ask for the page source again, it might have changed, which is a little confusing, but basically we want to say when you find this, keep keep track of whatever page source you had, because in the next few milliseconds or whatever, by the time we ask again, it might look different.
Okay.
So let's
Okay.
actually try
Sounds good.
calling this now so that we can use it.
Will this comment that I put in here break
Mhm.
our code
Nope, absolutely not.
because
You're
it's
good to
after a
go. So
semicolon?
yeah, exactly. Open a parenthesis. Now we need to actually give it some arguments. So you want to pass
So you
in
go,
WebDriver.
could you just press tab?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, the next thing we want to pass in is going to be some of the HTML we were looking at earlier. And based on the HTML we were looking at, if you scroll to the top of your file,
Let's
we
go
had
up.
some text, right? So
Mm-hmm.
what we want to do is just look for a piece of this. So my thought process was like basically the part that says data dash E2E follower count. That seems unique enough. We don't have to get super picky, but I think if you just grab that part, we're just going to try and find where this is.
All right.
So you want to put that into a string. You got it. See, you already knew.
Uh-oh.
Uh,
We got double
no,
quotes.
that's
Wait.
right.
That's right.
So it escaped the quotes that were in the HTML, so that's good. Now the last parameter that we want inside there still is we need a timeout. So you're going to want to do time span. So if you type time span dot from seconds, there you go. And then inside we're gonna pass in a number into from seconds. So it's a method call. So you need your parentheses exactly, and I don't know, 15 seconds is fine. It should not take that long, but cool. And
All
then a
right.
semicolon at the end.
Okay, and I added an extra bracket because this is 2 brackets
Yep.
inside. Looks good.
Yep. So one
Okay.
more thing that we want to do is we want to store the result of that into a variable. Of anytime you have an equal sign, it's doing something on the right side, right? So for
Mhm.
example, line 11 is saying make a new Chrome driver. So it does the right hand side of the equal sign and then assigns it to what's on the left. Line 13 is make a string, assign it to the thing on the left. Line 15 is go run this method, assign it to the thing on the left. So that's the pattern. And you know now that it's like type, variable name equals, and then the something that you want to assign into there. So I
Okay.
think we actually might be able to run this, but we're going to want to know that it's doing something. So one way that we could actually do that is with a breakpoint, or you could just do console write line.
Oh, wow. Look at this. It's telling us, it's pretty much handing it to us on a platter.
Yeah, there you go. Just go ahead and do that. Love it.
So,
Okay, run it.
F5. And we're off. Okay, it started. It's not headless. We're not trying to do that anymore.
Look, I
There's
got one
Nick's
more
profile.
follower.
Yeah, here we go. And it wasn't me.
So it it did it.
It worked. This is the TikTok page. All of the code from all of the HTML, it looks like,
Yeah.
that forms Nick's TikTok page.
So we know that that worked because it would wait up to 15 seconds, whatever you put in there, and
Mm-hmm.
it returns something. So we know that part worked. So we can close that and move on to the next step. And this is going to the other question that you had asked Jamal about. Like you were hoping that when you type follower count there, that was going to give you the number of followers. So not quite. It's just found where that HTML is, which is cool. But we have one more step, and I'm going to give you one more bit of code. So I used var here. So just again to remind you, var is just a short form to let the compiler figure out the type for you. Um, I like using it personally because it shortens the amount of text. But if you want to be verbose in your code, and a lot of people do, it can make it more readable. Then some people like putting the full type. So just a heads up. So you have some errors on your screen just because you and I named things differently. So I called mine follower count result. You called yours follower count. So
I
you can.
I like the idea of maybe changing, since we only have this in one spot and we have
Mhm.
yours. We're gonna adopt your new naming convention.
Cool.
So for those following along, we did change this to match Nick's new code that we pasted in.
So let me walk you through. It's only a couple lines, which is great, but we're going to be using something called a regular expression. And actually, Jamal, based on some of your other experiences, maybe not in C sharp, but you might have actually encountered regular expressions. Is that a familiar thing for you or no?
No, they're not at all. I've always seen this, and I always thought it was something to do with your registry on your computer. So
Okay.
right
No,
over my head.
that's okay. So a regular expression lets you define some syntax that matches patterns in strings. And there's like a basically like a almost like a language or a syntax that you use to go look for stuff. And if you take a look at the what's inside of that like equals new regex part, you'll notice that it looks very similar to the code that is on line 17, that string, right?
That's right.
But
It's highlighting it
it's
for me.
right. It's got a little bit of a different part though. And you'll notice after, because we're looking at an HTML tag, right? I'm talking with my hands here and using my angled brackets, but
Oh, yes.
inside the angle brackets, I guess they should be the other way. It's going to hurt my arms. You'll notice that it has parentheses, dot plus question mark. And if you've never seen a regular expression before, this is going to seem like it makes no sense. All that I'm doing is basically saying I want to, it's called a group. I want to have a group for the value that's inside of this tag because that's where the number is that we want.
Okay. I'm gonna
Does
say
that
okay as if I understand. It may become clearer later.
Okay, so that's we basically define the regular expression that will find that thing for us. That's line 21. Line 22 actually performs the lookup for us. And all that that line says is basically take the text from the page, start at this index where we found that text originally, go another 200 characters, and somewhere in those 200 characters, we should be able to match this pattern. Then the line after that is one more type conversion. So followers should be an integer. It should be a number. When we're using regular expressions, it's all string based. So because we want it to actually be a number, we have to parse that string and get a number out of it. There's an extra parameter in there called invariant culture. And technically, it might actually be the wrong thing to use here in general, but I like putting this in place because I have experiences where you're running software on different cultured computers. So say running this on a computer in France, where people use different separators for numbers. We're only dealing with integers, but there's commas sometimes instead of periods.
Right.
It will literally blow up your program. So I just make a habit of putting in invariant culture everywhere.
And I think we're good. I'm gonna dramatically press F5.
Boom. Let's see
Boop.
it.
And away we go. Chrome driver's been started. Notice Chrome is being controlled by automated test software at the top.
What do you see?
Now, followers 141. It worked, Nick. We've
It worked.
successfully pulled the number of followers using Selenium from your TikTok profile, the first step in our social media assistant. And this is genuine excitement. It worked. My first C# program that Nick wrote for me.
No, man, you came up with the idea. So we're going to
Okay.
make a commit. And in Git, the commit will be a local change. And then after, we're going to push it up. And actually, this time, we can try doing it in one fell swoop. So
Okay.
you can see the 3 files it wants to add. So you can actually press the stage with 3 arrows. I think it's 3. It's a little hard for me to see that one.
Right. There's
Stage
definitely
all.
more than one. Stage all. So Nick, before I press this, have we pushed any of this solution to your repo?
No. So this is going to be the first time that happens.
Okay. So we're going to press stage all. So we've staged program.cs, social media assistant.console, and the SLN. That's right. The VS community file.
That's right. So what you'll want to do here in the right side, in the bottom right, is give it a title, leave an empty line, and then give it a little mini description. Despite what it says. And you can press the commit and push button this time.
All right, let's try it out. Away we go. 3 files changed, 93 insertions. We'll talk about those another
bunch
time.
Of stuff. Yeah, okay. Press OK to that. So that did the commit locally. Now it's going to push it up to GitHub. Boom, there you go. If you press OK on that, you'll notice in Git extensions, you can see master as green and then origin master. They're both at the same commit. And origin master is suggesting that the server that you just pushed to now has your commit. So that is now publicly available on the internet. And
Wow.
congratulations, there's your first C# commit.
Insert confetti, fireworks.
Yeah, that's an editing job for you to make that like.
Yeah, there's going to be something good here.
So, Jamal, I think this is a really good exercise. Like I mentioned, I might do a follow up to do a little bit of code cleanup so that when we go to move on from this, we have some pieces that we can work with a little bit in a more organized structure, because going through this is a bit of a prototyping phase, which is totally fine that you wrote the code the way you did. I think that's a great way to do it. We'll clean it up a little bit and then kind of work on the next phase where we maybe start to look at um, basically wrapping this up in like an API that we want to talk with. That way, when we consider the next plugin for something like Facebook, we can say, hey, look, we also want it to have a number that comes back that we can print out. So we can dive into that more in the next time. But did that all seem useful for you, Jamal?
Super useful. A little bit intimidating. There's a lot of good stuff in here. I think dealing with Selenium in C# is a totally new adventure. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun on the next step here.
Yeah, this is great. So thanks for watching. If this video was useful and insightful, please like the video, leave a comment below if you have any thoughts on this, and of course, subscribe if you want to see the rest of the journey here, where we get Jamal coding up the social media assistant. So thanks again. Take care.